Track saws are pretty popular these days. The biggest drawback with them seems to be that they cost a lot of money. But there is a cheaper alternative. If you have a regular circular saw, you can do what many of us have been doing for years, and that's using a saw board. These are very simple to make and are as accurate as you can make them. So I had a couple at my old shop that were kind of beat up and worn out. So I thought I would make a pair of new ones now that I'm in my new shop. I'm using 1/2-inch melamine to make my saw boards. I'm using that because it stays straight and flat, and that's important for this. You can also use any good quality or better quality plywood, and solid wood is not out of the question either, although you're really looking at some wide stuff there. I don't use these for super accurate cuts. You can, but I don't. Mainly what I use these for is to cut down the sheets to more manageable size so I can cut them to the final dimension on the table saw. And they're great for that. For the sake of convenience, I want 2 saw boards. I want one that's 8 feet long for ripping sheets lengthwise, and I want one 4 feet long for cross cutting. Before I can cut the melamine, I've got to figure out how wide the base is going to be and make a mark over here. It then needs to be a little bit wider than that so that I can add a strip to it for the saw to run along and to give it room for clamping it down. So I'm going to make it about 4 inches wider than that. I also cut a couple of strips of wood here. This is spruce, but you can use 1/4-inch plywood, 1/4-inch hardboard even. That's what I used on my last one. Anything that's fairly thin. It has to be fairly thin to maximize the depth of cut from your saw. So these get glued and screwed onto the base. To accurately line up where the strips go, I'm going to measure how wide my shoe is on the saw, and I see it's about 5 1/16. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a very shallow cut in the base so that I can line up this strip accurately. Just going to lower my blade until it's just sticking above the surface slightly. Then I'm going to set my rip fence for 5 1/8. That's a little bit wider than the base of the saw. And now with the saw set, I'm going to put the factory edge of the sheet, which is very straight, against the fence and make that shallow cut. To attach the strips, I'm going to use construction adhesive, and I got some number 6 by 1/2-inch screws here. I'll need to pre-drill the holes for this, so I've got a small drill bit in my drill, and I've set the depth so that it doesn't go through the other side. Just going to put a very thin bead of glue right in the center of this strip. It doesn't take much. You have to use this type of glue because wood glue will not stick to melamine. Now I'm just going to carefully line it up with my line, my cut line. screws about 8-10 inches apart. You could also use very short nails. Now that the guide strips are glued and screwed on, it's time to make the first cut. So now that the saw boards are finished, I can make my first cut with them. First thing to do is to set the depth of cut. You're going to slide your saw board to the edge of the material that you're going to cut, and then lower your blade so that it's just breaking through the bottom by about 1/4 inch. Next step is to make a couple of marks on the material that you're going to cut. I want strips that are 9.5 inches wide, so I'll make a mark of 9.5 here and 9.5 here. I'll line it up with the mark on each end and clamp it in place. Now with the saw board clamped in place, I can make a cut. So that's all there is to it. Pretty easy. So that's how I make my saw boards. Like I said earlier, nothing new here. This is old school stuff, but certainly a viable alternative to a more expensive track saw system. Anyway, thanks for watching.